Hey, listeners, we really appreciate you listening every week. And if you like what you hear, we would love your rating on iTunes. A 5-star rating can go very far for us. So leave us a review. Tell us what you like and give us them 5 stars.
It may be primal, it may be vital, but it makes you homicidal. It's a vicious, it's a vicious, it's a vicious cycle.
Hey, listeners, it's Vicious Cycle Podcast, the podcast about periods and the people who get them. I'm your co-host, Meg Hayes.
I'm Kate Elston.
And I'm Meg Trowbridge.
Welcome.
Hello.
Hey, missed ya.
Hey, hi, hello. Woo! Everyone take a deep breath.
We're talking about period sex. And we're all a little nervous.
We're doing it.
We're doing it.
Feel my cheeks.
She's flushed.
Oh, she is flushed.
Very red and warm.
Meg, do we need to take your temperature?
I'm fine. It's also the wine.
All right. You know what? Let's just get into it. No beating
Okay.
around the bush. This might be also the time when parents, aunts, uncles of the three of us maybe listen to a Prairie Home Companion instead of this.
That you are talking to my mom right now,
we're
and that's a stereotype of Minnesotans.
We are all going to be talking about our sexual lives and sexual experiences.
Yeah.
So,
and if
turn
you're
it
my
off.
dad, don't worry, I've never had sex. Now turn off.
Cool. But for the rest of you, now that none of the parents are gone. One of the reasons we wanted to do this episode is because we were getting some phone calls about period sex. So let's just throw it over to two of our listeners. Here's call number 1.
So I don't really get periods naturally. I need to take birth control to make them happen. And I'd been off of birth control for about a year, and my doctor said, you have a lot of uterine lining that's built up that's not coming out for like a year's worth, and we need to put you on birth control to get rid of that. So I was like, all right. So I got an IUD in, and then it basically, like, I just had so much uterine lining to shed out, and it's like really awkward because it will come out when I'm having sex. Like, often if the guy's kind of really getting at my cervix back there, and then every time that I orgasm, like a little bit will come out, and it's like dark and flaky, and then sometimes it's also like really thick and clumpy. And one time I was dating this guy, and we were having sex, and then afterward he was like, what is this? And it was this thick, dark, brownish red clump that he pulled off of his dick, like it was Nickelodeon gack, just like really viscous, but like kind of clung to his penis as he was like pulling his hands away. And I was like, well, that's my uterine lining. And he like, he tried to act okay about it. You could tell he was like kind of grossed out, but like, held it together, which was great. But then it's also awkward because you can't like rub it on a sheet, and then you can't just like toss it into a trash can. You have to like scrape it off your fingers. But, it's just like that's the price you have to pay, I guess, to like enjoy this vagina. Like, that's just what's going to happen. And sometimes I feel like I should be more embarrassed about it, but then it's also like, I don't know, that's just what it is. Anyway, hope you guys like the story. Bye.
Gack is both what it looks like and the sound you make.
That's probably why they picked it.
Gack.
Oh my God.
It's so true because it's kind of like sticky. Yeah, you need a tissue to get all of that business
I
out.
also like what she said about there's like no real way to, can't really dispose of it.
Yeah.
Like you can't wipe it on the wall. You can't wipe it on the
Right.
sheets.
No.
You're just like, what do I
Kate,
do?
what
has
are
to
you
become
wiping
a
on
whole
walls?
I don't know. Like,
Titanic style?
yeah, exactly.
We're going to blacklight Kate's apartment. It's going to be terrifying.
Crime scene.
What happened to the walls? Oh, man.
So that's,
Wow.
that's one story.
God bless this man for keeping it together. It's like...
It's got to be a
also,
little bit disturbing.
Caller, you should never be ashamed or embarrassed.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like
it's
she was.
It's just a weird body thing.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
super interesting that it would peep out at orgasm.
Well, but remember we learned about that.
Yeah,
that
it's the suction.
Your cervix loosens up when you have an orgasm.
Yeah.
So if you're having P and V sex, the semen can help loosen the cervix and help your period come out, but so can an orgasm.
Right.
Oh, right,
So
right.
orgasms can
'Cause you're, like,
jumpstart your period.
contracting,
Yeah,
basically.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
Your muscles are
that is so.
contracting.
I a lot of people in my I feel like my friends have always kind of said that, like, I feel like I can, like, period sex also makes the blood come out faster. It probably does.
Yeah.
So we can get into that.
Well, because our buddy called in and said that she didn't have
Yeah.
her period for a while and sex brought it back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you guys ever spot after you masturbate?
Okay, what? I don't think so, no.
I do.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I really hope that our parents have turned off the podcast. All right. Here is caller number 2.
Right when I got out of college, I was commuting into my new job in New York City, and one of my fellow commuters was a guy that I went to high school with. And I had actually had a huge crush on him in high school. He was like captain of the football team and, you know, super good looking. Anyway, so we were commuting together for months. And we were sitting together, we were talking, we became friends. Eventually, he ended up getting an apartment in the city, and he asked me out. So we went out for the first time, went out to dinner, drinks, and drank way, way too much. And so I went back to his new place with him, and we hooked up, and we had sex all night. And I do distinctly remember at one point falling off his bed into the bottom drawer of his dresser. Anyway, so the next morning, wake up, and I realized that I had gotten my period. And I mean, it looked like somebody was murdered. There was an actual handprint on the pillowcase next to my head. And I had ruined all of his sheets, all of his brand new sheets in his brand new apartment. But what made it worse, like if he had like joked about it or something, it would have been okay. He pretended that nothing was wrong. And I was just so uncomfortable and horrified, and the, you know, horrible person who had ruined all of his stuff. And so I got myself dressed and I slunk home and never went out with him again. Anyway, that was one of my shameful stories.
Oh, not shameful.
Oh my
not
God.
shameful.
I agree. The onus is on him. He should have just been like, okay, not a problem. As opposed,
it sounded like he was.
well, it sounded like he didn't even address it at all. Like,
Oh, okay.
good morning,
Yes.
maiden.
Which is
Yeah.
another level of discomfort.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
A hand.
That's so
Amazing.
good. That's so good.
Amazing.
Oh my God.
Oh,
Crime scene. I hear that a lot, I feel like.
Yeah.
Crime scene.
I often reference Martin Scorsese
Oh,
when
okay.
talking about
Okay.
period sex.
Oof. Okay, so those were some of the phone calls we got. We will share our stories, listeners, but you have to wait a little bit.
Sorry.
So let's just talk about period sex to begin with. A little bit of background. It's completely 100% normal to do it on your period. Like, I feel like we all are this is a pro period sex podcast.
Yes.
There's nothing inherently wrong or gross or inconsistent with biology to do that. And some people would say it is better. And here are some reasons. We've talked about how sex can jumpstart your period because of the semen, if you're having penis and vagina sex, or orgasms. Those things release the cervix and make the blood come out. So some experts actually say that period sex could make your period come faster and therefore be shorter.
Whoa.
Also, period sex feels good. So like if you're feeling shitty on your period, it can help you relax your cramps, make you feel
Yeah.
better mentally, physically. So that's good. Blood's a natural lubricant, which I feel like is definitely something I notice when having period sex. It's like,
yeah.
oh, that went in real quick.
Yeah.
Some people say you're more sensitive to touch, which, you know, can make sex feel better when you're on your period. And then so some women say that they have a higher libido on their period. And I wanted to know what you guys thought, because biologically it's understood that women tend to have a high sex drive when they're ovulating.
Right.
Because, like, you know, biologically that's when we can have children, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But I think that I have noticed lately that I have a high libido during my period. And there's a couple reasons that a lot of experts say that might be, but I want to know what you guys thought. Like, do you have a high sex drive during your period?
so in my 20s, I totally did. Like, even like I noticed I wanted to have sex even more when I was on my period. Now, maybe now that I'm off birth control, maybe I just feel the business more or something. So I'm like less into like touch in general.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
But you feel shitty and you're just like, don't even touch me.
Yeah, kind of. And I think like I think I'm tender. Like I think there's something I'm more tender down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a good point. It may make things feel better. Maybe I'll just be like, Kev, let's give this a try.
Yeah, maybe afterwards you'll feel better.
Yeah.
Meg, hey.
I think both are true. I mean, I think sometimes I don't want to be touched, and then sometimes I have a really high libido.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, period sex is a thing. It's a phenomenon. So women do want it, you know,
Yeah.
at least some of the time
Yeah.
on their period.
The things
Yeah.
that some experts say is that it might feel a little hotter because it's like it is taboo and we're not supposed to be
Oh.
having sex on our period, and it feels carnal and like sexy, and maybe like there's something about that
sure.
feeling. Maybe because the chances of getting pregnant are lower when we're menstruating, that there's
Sure.
the sense of like I can do it and it doesn't matter.
Do anything.
I'm alive. And then I read some stuff that the feeling of heaviness in your abdomen could translate into arousal for some people, but I don't know.
Interesting.
I've
Like
never
pressure?
Yeah, it's some pressure, but
Yeah.
yeah, who knows? So yeah. So if you're feeling sexy during your period, go for it. And actually, after doing this research, it made me want to do it more on my period, because usually I'm just like, oh, we don't. I guess I kind of have a thing of like, we don't do it on my period. Not like. I think it's just like a mess thing for me.
Yeah.
Sure.
But now I'm like, oh, it does feel good though, because what we will tend to do it, I feel like, on the last days of my period, and then I'm like, oh, that went in real quick, and this
Yeah.
feels
Yeah.
good. So I'm gonna do a little bit more.
I wonder too, because your estrogen levels decrease between ovulation and when your period starts, and then they start to increase again. So I wonder if that shift in hormones also helps with libido.
Good. So have you guys ever come across guys that are totally against it and refer to that week as like blowjob week? Which I feel like I read that a lot while doing research. Like
Oh
everyone's
my
like,
god!
which is just also it's like
still supposed to have
yeah,
sex.
I'm having sex, but from your mouth.
That's disgusting.
Yeah.
Well, I hate those guys. So I think I was texting you guys about this. So I was in a Lyft ride after we recorded an episode, and I really love just telling men that I do a podcast about menstruation. And he was flummoxed. He was just like, what? That's crazy. That's hilarious. That is so gross, though. Like, that is nasty. I was like, wow, you have a lot of emotions.
And then he like shared all the sweet stuff about
Yes.
buying tampons for his daughter. and
Yes, he has a
shit.
16-year-old daughter who obviously has her period. And even though he was saying it was nasty and that she was like, I need tampons, he's like, girl, that's gross. Then he's like, well, I mean, I keep tampons in my bathroom for her. And I'm like, yeah, see, it's not gross. But he specifically said that period sex is gross. And he wondered if we were going to do an episode about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, we
Buddy.
are. Because a bunch of people don't think it's gross.
Yeah.
And I was like, why do you think it's gross? And he's like, oh, it's just like, it's gross. Like, I think it's germy. And I was like, how do you feel about anal sex, my man? And he's like, also gross. I don't do it. And I'm like,
How do you feel
"Okay,
about
okay."
semen?
Thank you. How do you feel about semen going in a person's mouth?
That's the truth.
You know? Anywho.
I do have weird things with blood. I don't know if it's because I work with kids, but anytime a kid's bleeding, I'm like, oh god. Like I'm like looking for like something, like a
This
nurse.
isn't supposed to happen.
Right.
So I do understand
Yes,
the feeling
absolutely.
of like blood exposure, like that.
Yeah,
Sure.
that's fair.
Yeah, I do understand that.
And actually, we did get another phone call that I won't play just because it's a little bit of a downer. But one of our callers did say that they dated someone who didn't like period sex, and she didn't know for a while. And it turns out that he had been abused as a kid. So like the sight of blood just like wasn't fun for him.
Of
So
course. That's fair.
Everyone has a thing, and
Yeah.
everyone is entitled to their own thoughts. But like,
Yeah.
there's nothing. I don't believe that like your uterine lining is inherently germy or anything. It's
I don't
not like
think so
it's
either.
not.
I just wonder about sex without a condom while on your period, and that
Oh, I'm sure.
like
I'm sure STDs can still be
exposure.
transmitted. Yeah, absolutely.
But that's the same with regular sex.
Right. So a friend of mine did tell me though that she feels like when she has period sex, she gets yeast infections a little bit more frequently.
Interesting.
Oh.
And it is so yeast infections do happen more when you're when you have sex, like yeast infections can happen
Right.
from sex. And then I read somewhere that due to the hormonal changes during your period, you might be more likely to get a yeast infection on your period. So it's like those things. So she said that she doesn't have period sex because she's just gotten a couple of yeast infections from it, which is
I feel like that makes sense to me because I feel like your pH balance changes up because
Sure.
your uterine lining is kind of mixing it all up down there. So I feel like you're more susceptible to stuff. That's also why I think some tampons give me yeast infections.
Nice use of pH balance, Meg.
Hey, thank you. Dr. Trowbridge coming in.
So yeah, so basically like your uterine lining does have bacteria in it, so like you should, wear protection in any case. But there's nothing inherently like unhealthy about it for anybody.
Like a guy could get an infection from it?
I mean, HIV, I would assume, right? Like
Got it.
right.
Got it.
Yeah. So it's still, still wear protection. And then as I was doing some more research on this, there are certain products, menstrual products that are made for sex. So there is a product called Flex, which we will all be getting a sample of. I emailed them and we'll be getting this. It's a menstrual disc that goes way up there. And they say that you can have mess-free sex with it while you're on your period. You can be wearing it. It can be collecting blood and you can still have sex. So we will find out. We will try. The way they describe it. The way they describe it is a cup worn inside the vagina during menstruation. Flex fits against the cervix, creating a soft barrier that temporarily blocks menstrual blood.
balls.
It's disposable. It can be worn up for 12 hours, and it can't be felt by either partner during sex. Not a form of contraception, though.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Interesting.
It's not a condom. It's to stop blood.
It's just for blood.
So there's that.
So it sounds like what my other friends have talked about as soft cups.
Yeah.
But they intimidate me because I think they're just flush against the cervix. So when you retrieve them,
You got to go
You
way up there.
up there.
Yeah. Oof.
But
Yeah.
cool.
I don't know if I could do that. And then Thinks, our good old friend Thinks,
Yes.
with the underwear, they made a sex blanket.
They did.
Oh, see, I kept seeing their ads about period sex everywhere.
Oh, wow.
And I was just like, especially I was in New
Maybe
York.
just
Yeah, that's their headquarters, I think.
It was
so
everywhere.
I think.
that's but it cost $369, and I'm like, all right,
Okay.
just
Yeah.
put a towel down.
Yeah. right.
My,
But-
you guys, my friend has a towel. So I was
A period sex towel.
Yes, I was
Yes,
visiting.
girl.
I was visiting
Smart.
New York. We were talking about the podcast, and she and her boyfriend were openly talking about that blue towel that they use for
I love
for
it.
period
I
sex.
love it.
It was so fantastic. They were like, and I think they were talking about like a spill that they had, and they were just like, "Oh, well, we can't use the blue towel. That's right. That's delineated for period sex."
I love
That could be
it.
happening next
Isn't
week.
that so
That's
amazing?
the best thing I've ever
It
heard in
makes
my
me
life.
So happy.
Should we talk about our stories? I have a couple things more to go into about period sex in pop culture, but I don't know. I
Oh,
feel like we could talk. Let's just talk about it.
I can talk. I'm at a place where I can talk
Are you
about
sure,
it.
Meg?
Let's talk about it. I mean, I have one story in particular.
Okay.
I don't know about you guys.
As do I.
Great. I definitely have one story I can tell.
Who wants to go first?
I think Meg just.
Aw, dang it.
All right.
I think Meg just volunteered as tribute.
I did nothing of the sort, but I'll take it.
You just said, "I'm ready to talk about it."
Okay, so the story that comes most foremost to mind is the first time I had sex after the wedding, which we did not have sex on the wedding night.
I didn't know that.
I was in the room next to you, and you did not have sex on your wedding night. I did not hear you.
We're famously very quiet lovemakers.
we were all so dehydrated from dancing.
My body was so sore. I was
Yeah.
like, don't touch me.
Who has sex on their wedding night, first of all?
I mean,
Anyway.
like, let's debunk
Did
that.
either of you?
No.
Okay.
No.
And I wasn't opposed to it leading in, but I also was like, Kev, let's not like do the thing where we're like, well, we have to get to bed and not drink too much, you know? But also because of the nerves of like work was crazy and like family drama and then wedding, my body was just a disaster. So I was bleeding every like 10 days.
Wow.
It was
Wow.
nuts. And I was on birth control, mind you. So like,
Your body, like my body will do the thing that maybe is more typical, where if I'm stressed, I don't bleed, and
Ah.
like your body's
Mine-
like blah blah blah.
Yeah,
blah.
it's. I think it builds up uterine lining. Like I don't know why we need this, and then it just. So on my like wedding weekend, I was bleeding. Which like
so sorry.
what you gonna do? At that
Yeah.
point, I was so used to it because for months I'd been having multiple periods a month.
Damn.
So the wedding's over. We took like a couple days off to just sleep, and I think it was like the Monday after. It was like the Monday morning. We're like, let's do this. But I was like definitely still having my period, and we were just like, doesn't matter. And straight up, like some of the best sex we've ever had. Like it was so good.
Great.
But we did not. Rookie mistake. We didn't lay anything down.
Oh, boy.
And so then afterwards, we noticed there's this like perfect little like blood stain on the sheet, and we're like, this is like when you like take a virgin away on the wedding night and you hang the sheet the next day.
Oh my God! Like Chronicles of a Death Foretold.
You take a picture and send it to your parents.
Look, we did it.
Did you hang the sheet in your window so all of
so
Hate
that's
Street?
what's still out there, guys.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Nice.
So 1, great sex on period, and 2, funny.
Nice.
That's my
You
story.
lost your second virginity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. Kay, why are you looking at me?
Do you want to go?
We can't do 2 Megs in a row. People get confused.
We know it's against the law.
So
That's the rule.
So the only real story that I have that is, you know, a little graphic from period sex. I was in high school. It was my first serious boyfriend, the guy that I had gotten birth control for behind my parents' back, and I was so horny all the time. We could only ever really do it in either of our cars because both our parents had a pretty strict, like, if your girlfriend or boyfriend is home, doors have to be open. You can't, you know, whatever, all the good rules that should exist. So we were just like, so do it in each other's cars. Cool. So we just like drove all around our town, like hooking up in like various parking lots and like public, but actually we couldn't do it in parking lots because we lived in a tiny suburb outside Seattle where the police were notorious for just like, like as soon as a car was parked in a parking lot being like, what's your business? So
What are you doing in here?
Which we learned the hard way one time.
no.
At his place of employment. That's a whole other story.
Oh.
So we would just go into like kind of off-road, like little side streets that were very wooded and covered. And so it looked like we were maybe just parking to visit a house, but then we would like get in the back seat of his Ford. He had a soccer game, and our high school's home color was white. And so we met up afterwards and drove around in his...
Kate's nervous because she's pronouncing her W's.
We drove around in his Ford.
It's fjord.
And I can't remember in which parking lot we pulled over or where, but we did it. And I think I knew I was on my period, but again, I guess I've always just been like, it's my last day, so it won't be a crazy day.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
it always ends up coming out.
Uh-huh.
And cool, we had sex in the back seat. Everything's great. And I go home. He goes home. He walks into his house, and his mom is like, "Did you have an injury on the soccer field? Why is your jersey all bloody?" And he genuinely didn't know. And he looked down at his hands, and his hands were also bloody. And his shirt, the bottom of his shirt was bloody because he didn't take off his shirt. It was a quickie.
Right.
And he was like, I guess I must have had like a bloody nose or something. I don't know. And as he was walking upstairs, he was like, "Oh my God." And it registered, and he called me immediately and was like, "Oh my God." But thankfully, I think he didn't know. So he genuinely was surprised.
To his mom.
To
he was
his
just
mom.
like,
To his mom, he was genuinely surprised. Like, he was like, "Oh God, yeah, I guess." I think if he had known, he would have like played it off really obviously,
Right.
and it would have been like, But it was crazy.
I cut myself with paper.
Yeah, neither of us noticed because I guess it was dark. It was
Yeah.
night. So he didn't notice until he walked into his
fast.
house. And the light of the living room was like
On his white jersey.
Yeah,
That is amazing.
Oh my
yeah,
Oh,
God.
yeah.
That's a
So
good story.
great story. Okay.
Meg Hayes.
Let's flash back to 2012, 2013.
A simpler time.
My boyfriend at the time is visiting from Spain. I am on my period, and I am maybe the horniest I've ever been in my life.
That's, oh my God, I do not want to be in a room with you. You are always, I feel like you're always horny. So the
You're a horny
horniest
person.
you've been is a sight to envision.
Kate, you would be horny too. Look.
Okay, anyway, no judgment.
We're all horny. We're all horny podcasters.
Anyway, I was very horny and on my period, so for me that meant we need a condom. And I'm assuming we were still using a condom at this time. I think we always used both for the most part, birth control and condom. So I'm ravaging my room, like upturning dresser drawers, like scouring on the floor like a mole, like trying to find a condom. Just like, is there any condom in this fucking house? As I'm doing this, I'm bottomless. Or maybe, yeah. Anyway, we're like, it's about to happen.
Yeah.
And as I'm scouring the floor for a condom, a chunk of lining falls out and perfectly onto like a skirt that was on the floor. So it's just like on the skirt. I like pick it up, and I'm pretty sure my boyfriend is in there witnessing all of this. So I think I excuse myself to go like plop it into the toilet, or I don't remember what I did with it. I removed it with a tissue or whatever.
Tissue. I like how we pronounce things very properly when we're nervous.
The sad part of this story is we did not find a condom, and I was unable to have period sex that day. So I think we did other things. I still think about it.
Was
to
it
this day.
blowjob
It was
week?
hell no. Hell motherfucking no. I just still remember that as like the worst blue balls I've ever had in my life. There was also another situation where we had sex, and then we were probably chilling in bed for a while. And then I think I was like standing ready to go in the shower, and we were chatting, and I looked down, and it was just to my ankles, like the blood. It was like making its way down my legs, and I
Your
was like,
boyfriend just maintaining that contact, like,
he was such a kind man. I think I was just like, oh, guess I should get in that shower. Am I right?
I will never forget the way you just said chunk, like over and over again.
It was
Chunk.
a chunk. Perfectly plopped onto. I still remember the skirt that it fell on.
If I were to craft a song about, it would be like chunk, everybody gonna chunk.
gonna pop it in a chunk.
Oh my god! Wow.
Great. Okay, guys. Touch
We did
hands.
this.
I feel like we just
My hands are a little sweaty.
we
from
just
the-
bore our souls.
Yeah.
My cheeks are still very hot. You want to touch my
Wow.
cheek?
I'm like horny now. I'm just kidding.
Wow.
Hearing
down to
about you
clown.
guys having sex makes me want to.
Oh.
Okay, well, here's the thing though. Thank you for sharing those stories.
Thank you. Thank all of us
for the opportunity.
So you know, like we've all done it. Everyone's done it or considered
Yes.
doing it. And
Yep.
I wanted to know if in pop culture how period sex was discussed.
Yep.
And I think the first thing that comes to mind is obviously Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
Yes.
How they had a
Yes.
period sex song. And the gimmick with this song was that every time she sang it or someone sang it, it would get interrupted in the sitcom. Which we'll talk about that afterwards. But I just want to play it in case our viewer or our listeners aren't familiar with this song. So basically this is Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which is a musical comedy on the CW.
If you're not watching it, get on it.
Yeah, it's
great.
so good. We love her so much. Rachel Bloom. And so here is just that song. In a bunch of episodes, they start singing the song, but they never finish it. So then she actually wrote a whole version of this song.
Period sex, period sex. Put down a towel, party till it's dry with some period sex. Period sex. Think of it as just Mother Nature's juice cleanse. Period sex. Period sex. It's a little gross, but I'm less likely to get pregnant during period sex. Period sex. It must be summer, cause we're gonna slip and slide into some period sex. Period sex. If you're grossed out, let's pretend it's cherry lube. Period sex. Period sex. It's not weird. scared. It's just another kind of lip gloss.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for that. In the music video, she's wearing a red robe, a red sexy robe. So the crazy thing about that is that so the show Crazy Ex-Girlfriend was originally going to be on Showtime. And apparently there are some things that they could do on Showtime that they couldn't do on the CW. And I think because they were teasing period sex, like they couldn't do the whole song on CW, but they could have on Showtime. So that's why in the show she'll just be like period sex, and then someone interrupts her.
Yeah.
So she released that full length, minute long song, but that still can't even be on CW. It can only go on YouTube, which is interesting. Whatever.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So anyway, so cool. Like that's I feel like the only like pop culture reference I kind of have for period sex.
Yeah.
Can you think of any? Because the only other thing I thought of or I found was Glow on Netflix, Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, that show.
Yes.
There's an episode where Mark Maron's character sleeps with another woman and they start the scene and he's like, wow, it's a crime scene in here.
Right.
And then he uses that as like a reason why he's a good boyfriend because he slept with her on her period. So
Yeah.
it's not even like a positive thing. It's like, hey, I slept with you and you were bleeding, so I'm cool, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
There's an episode of Sex in the City where Samantha was afraid she was going through the change, and then she
Menopause. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kate. And so then she
I was like, werewolf?
lowers her standards and sleeps with this like new neighbor of hers who's just like an old, sad kind of guy. And then like as they're having sex, he's like, whoa, babe, looks like Aunt Flo came into town, just to like exemplify how terrible this guy is. And she's like, oh, thank God. And she like runs out of his apartment. So I feel like that.
Yes,
I mean,
that's a good one.
Yeah.
a 3-minute.
Yeah.
And then I wrote Superbad, but it wasn't sex, was it? It was like, there's a scene in Superbad where Jonah Hill's like grinding with a girl.
Yeah.
And then some guy's like, you were grinding with my girlfriend. She's on her period.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Because it's like there's a stain on his jeans.
Oh, gross. Nice,
Yeah.
nice, nice.
Yeah.
I mean, not
Gross,
gross.
nice.
No,
Gross,
not,
nice.
not gross. But the other thing too is that apparently I haven't read 50 Shades of Grey, but there is an excerpt in the book where
I also haven't read it. Have you read it, Meg?
I have not.
Okay, yeah.
So in the book, there's a I don't know which one, but there is a line. He reaches between my legs and pulls on the blue string. What? And gently pulls my tampon out and tosses it into the nearby toilet.
Okay.
Which is like sexy until the toilet.
So it's a New York apartment where like the toilet's in the closet.
Yeah. But so that's really cool.
Oh my God. I am
not,
I'm
director?
red. That made me red.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd let a guy take out my business.
Wow. That is.
Okay. So
Private.
yeah, I don't know if I would let a guy pull out my tampon.
Hell
I'm
no.
like, I got it.
I will excuse myself.
But according to a Guardian article about this scene, apparently it was a beloved scene and it was a celebrated scene for people that like the book.
Sure.
According to the Guardian article, it inflamed imaginations when the book came out, but Hollywood chose not to film the scene. The director, Sam Taylor Thompson, said, quote, it was never even discussed.
Go fuck yourself.
So that's interesting. I mean, you know.
Well, because it reminds
Chosen
me
not to be
of
in.
when our friend and fellow podcaster called in, Claire, about when she was producing a play about periods, and they were like, can you find another word for period? And she's like, it's already a euphemism. Like the
Yeah.
fact that like the word period is uncomfortable. So like whatever the CW rule is where you can't talk about period sex because
You
somehow
can talk
that's
about
more
any
graphic.
sex that you want.
Yeah, they can talk about sex, but no, we draw the line.
A period
Yeah.
sex. So anywho, just this idea that the period is the most taboo thing and sex can be everywhere.
Right,
Right.
exactly. That's so true. It's so interesting. To stop this sort of like wave of taboo around period sex, I found a really cool Vice article about a photographer who documents queer couples post-period sex.
Whoa.
And it's really cool. I'll show you guys some of the photos and we'll share this article on our social so all of our listeners can see it. Okay, so this article is by Simon Doherty, and it's about a photographer named Nolwenn Cifuentes. And she took photos of queer couples post sex in LA, and all these periods are really cool. So like, you know, hands are bloody, bloody hands, bloody mouths.
Wow.
That one's I guess there's blood on the neck. Blood on the mouth. Really powerful images.
It's powerful and it's beautiful.
And it's beautiful. Blood all over the sheets. Blood on the underwear. Yeah. So that's kind of cool.
All kinds of bodies.
This makes
I
me
love it.
feel discomfort, but I think that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I could let someone go down on me on my period.
Yeah. Have you ever, Meg? I don't think I have.
I haven't. No. But I'm not. Yeah. See, now I think it'd be tough just because I'm just like extra. So like when you say people are more sensitive
To touch.
yeah, I feel like for me it's like too sensitive to where it's not enjoyable.
Interesting. Yeah. And the last thing I'll say is a super brief search I did very quickly.
Brief search.
Super very quickly. That there definitely appears to be a section for period sex on porn sites. I went to Pornhub
Okay.
and very quickly typed in period sex. Saw that there were a couple videos. Yep, there's videos closed out.
Exit.
Again,
I didn't watch any of them. There were no great plot lines.
This is my work computer, so I'm a little like period sex. Up there it is, and delete
we're
cookies. So let's say you do have period sex. What are some tips? What should you do with the mess? So I found an article called "Pleasure on Your Period," which is by a sex educator out of Toronto named Luna Matatas.
Great name.
Best
Great
name.
name.
And
Luna Matata.
I knew you were going to do that. I knew
What
you
a
were going to.
wonderful name. Luna Matata.
If you're listening, Luna, sorry about the song. So basically, speaking of porn stars, she says that porn stars, when they have period sex, use sex sponges, which are literally just sponges that you put up there.
Whoa.
There are
Is it the same as sponges you use
For contraception?
No. Some people use sponges like you would a tampon or a menstrual cup.
Yes. So
Got
that's
it.
what this is for. It's to
Got
soak
it.
it up, and then apparently you push it way up there, and then there's no mess. So that's a
Got
thing. Luna also suggests keeping old sheets and towels around, which
Yep.
Meg, your friend, does,
Yep.
which I love.
Yep.
She says use disposable puppy training pads, which I'm just like, that's so unsexy.
Yeah, right.
But if you have them
crunch,
around,
crunch.
That plastic lining.
yeah.
It's like comparing yourself to like adolescence, like you're young again and an animal.
Yeah, exactly.
It would feel like doing it on a hospital
Yeah.
exam table.
Right. Oh, totally.
Right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And she also suggests plastic sheets or shower curtains, which at this point, like if you're that grossed out by it, I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
I don't
Shower
know.
curtains?
Yeah.
It would look like American Psycho.
Maybe just Psycho. I think American Psycho's the business card guy, right?
Yeah, but there's like
Oh.
a situation with like a plastic sheet and like cleaning up, like laying down plastic
Yes.
sheets.
Interesting.
Oh,
Also,
boy.
just do it in the shower. You know, if you're really that concerned about the mess, like do it
I've
in the shower.
heard that from a couple people.
For me, like water isn't a lubricant,
Right.
So it's not like because there's water suddenly. But if you have your period, I guess
Kind of a lubricant.
Yeah. So we have a very slippery tub, so I'm scared to do it in the shower.
Yeah.
Oh, the other cool thing that I saw randomly as I was doing this research, you guys know Savage Love?
Yeah.
Dan Savage's sex advice column.
Yep.
Someone wrote in with a question about this. She's like, I don't know if you're the right person to ask because you're a gay man, but
Right.
like my boyfriend won't do anything with me on my week of my period. And Dan had a really good suggestion, which was, have you thought about not doing heteronormative penis and vagina sex that week? Like he
Right.
said that like straight people get so caught up on that act. He's like, maybe this is the week you experiment. You do other things. You use sex toys. You do other kind of stimulation that doesn't need to include insertion. So and the woman wrote back and was like, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't even think of that my whole life. Yes, of course. So anyway, that's really interesting. And obviously if you yourself are in a queer relationship right now, you've thought of that. So like, but this is for the straight people that haven't thought about that. the dummies among us. And then if you do get a stain on anything, wash it in cold water as soon as you can. That's the best way to get rid of a stain.
Great.
So toss it in the laundromat and call it a day.
Cold cycle.
Pro tip.
So you know what, guys, listeners,
That was
put
research.
a towel down, get comfortable,
Yeah. Get
and have
freaky.
it.
Unless your partner has specifically said like I can't do that,
Yeah.
go for it.
Go for it.
'Cause it's
I'm gonna do it more.
Natural lube, like it's smooth.
Oh, it makes for a good time.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's my research on period sex.
Period sex.
Yay.
Doing a podcast.
Period sex. Guys, we did it.
We did it. High fives. We high five. High fives. High fives.
Yay.
Read my labias.
Read my labios.
Read my labias.
Read my labios.
Okay.
So
So
this week was tough.
the world feels like it's ending. The walls feel like they're closing in.
Yeah. Oh, look, just in case anyone listens to this later, this is Brett Kavanaugh was just confirmed to the Supreme Court.
So yeah, I've got many thoughts on the situation. One challenge I think for a lot of women right now is the frustration. There's so many challenges. Let's start with one. The frustration with certain women on
The Senate.
was she on the Judiciary Committee?
Susan
She
Collins
was not.
is not. No.
Women on
There
the
are
Senate.
no women Republican
That's
on the
right.
Judiciary
That's right.
Committee.
That's right. I saw something on Instagram that showed that was really upsetting to me. That showed a picture of Jeff Flake and her, and it was like, now we have a pussy and a cunt, and I was like, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
I don't know who wrote that, but it didn't make me feel better as like someone that this is affecting. But the three of us have come up with a fun way to show our frustration with other women that doesn't just outrightly call them
Right.
a cunt.
Because that word, I don't like that word, but
Yeah.
Susan Collins is that word.
For this week
I'm going
she
to reserve
is,
that
maybe
word.
forever she is.
Yeah.
So we're going to go ahead and we're going to teach you guys a game. We're going to make it fun. So many of you know the euphemism "see you next Tuesday," which I think is from Shakespeare. Is it
Really?
maybe? We'll fact
check it later.
See you next Tuesday is a way to call someone a cunt without actually doing it to their face. So we took that and we ran with it. So we basically just do acronyms.
Yes.
that
But we have
vary.
fun. But we have fun with them.
Fun
We
with
have
it.
fun.
So
Kate, what's your favorite?
I mean, one time when we talked about this acronym, we came up with Charles understands nothing, Timothy.
right.
It's so bad.
But we only know what we are talking about.
Right.
The people around us don't. See you next Tuesday is out in the ether.
Right.
Everybody knows
Yeah.
what you're saying when you say see you next
They
Tuesday.
just think outside of the box.
But they don't know what you're saying
Charles
when you
understands
say,
nothing, Timothy.
Exactly.
Did, Meg Tro, did you have one?
Yeah, she's a real can't understand Nantucket trends.
Oh, God. Nantucket trends is so vivid.
You know, or like Colin's underwear never tatters. That just sounds like you're talking about someone's
Oh,
underwear.
so now you're actually bringing Susan Collins into this.
You could.
Okay, let's do it. Because I thought there could be one that was describing her confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh and what that did to our country. Collins ushers nauseating tyranny.
Wow! Shit.
So it sounds like you're being topical. It's an intelligent
Yes.
response
She
to
has
the times.
ushered in nauseating tyranny.
She has.
I think she made this terrible decision because Collins usually needs taffy.
Oh, okay.
She didn't get her
Didn't get
taffy.
it. Didn't get it.
That
Day.
was her staffers should have known. We should really be taking her staffers to task.
So, you know, that was a special edition of Read My Labia.
Yeah, and this is not an excuse for liberal men to go around calling women cunts
Nope, it
and
is
men
not.
pussies.
Agreed.
You can
And
go
also,
right and fuck
let's-
yourself.
And let's also say that West Virginia Democratic Senator Joe Manchin also voted yes. So it's not just the women among
Exactly.
us. It is, but yeah. So fuck all y'all.
yeah.
Yeah, and also big giant fuck you to Brett Kavanaugh.
Yeah, you're the
just-
worst.
You're a piece of shit.
You're the piece of shit.
Piece of shit.
Entitled,
All the men,
sniveling
Yeah.
man.
all the
pathetic
all
piece
the
of crap.
Republican congressmen
Yeah.
and women can go fuck themselves. Maybe not Lisa Murkowski. I guess she
She did okay.
voted no.
Yeah.
Read my labias, read my labias,
read my labias.
labias.
That was the angriest one that
powerful
we've
one.
done.
That one was like right on the surface.
So usually on this show we do a segment called Why I Cried This Week. But since things have been really dark, I've been kind of trying to find reasons to smile. So I've listed a couple of reasons here. Things that have made me feel hopeful this week are seeing all of the women storm the Supreme Court steps and bang on the doors and say, our court. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's amazing speech about sexual assault and just about everything that's happened. Kamala Harris having statements about what happened, men getting arrested for us. One thing I really loved was Danielle Schneider, who's the co-host of Bitch Sesh, posted a video of her and her daughter dancing to La Tigra, and she was like, the revolution is here. And I don't know, it's like the thing that I'm having a hard time finding a lot of hope lately, but the thing that is giving me hope is seeing other women and what they are doing right now, and then, you know, using that as a model for what we can be doing.
Yeah.
And it's basically gearing up, taking a break, and then getting ready to fight like hell. Yeah. So, I don't know. Thank you to all the women and the allies out there that are standing up, and it's really helpful. Hearing all those women screaming on the Supreme Court steps it felt like we finally had something that was draining out and silencing all of the bullshit that we had heard weeks previously. So that was why I smiled this week.
I love it. Thank you.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I smiled thinking about us and our podcast.
Nice.
I'm like, if I didn't have this, it would be an even darker.
Yeah, for real. Because I feel like
Time.
this podcast has given me agency more than I feel like I've ever had over my body. So I feel, and just like knowing that it's touching people and making people laugh and stuff. So anyway, not to get all sentimental.
I know.
I love you guys.
Love you too.
So you guys, I have a surprise song
Yes.
for you.
Yay!
Here's the thing. We've been talking a lot about Homeward Bound, right?
Yes, we have.
And that part of the soundtrack where Shadow emerges from the trees and there's a swell of French horns and
Oh, no.
trombones. I wrote lyrics to that part. And here it is.
Oh my
Oh,
god.
God.
How did you find the instrumental?
Oh, it's on YouTube. The song is called Reunion.
Oh my
That's
god.
the name
Is that
of
the
the
name
track.
of your song?
Of course it is.
Mine's is Reunion with lyrics. Here we go.
Title.
Hold on, wait a minute now. What is that shape in the trees? Could it be Shadow found his way back home and climbed out of that muddy hole? Oh my god, and now he's running towards his human. Holy crap! Here come the tears, miracles, they are real. I will never ever be the same. They hug and kiss while Shadow he lives. If you aren't a mess while watching this, you must be a soulless monster. This fucking movie, it's manipulative, but I don't care. It is why I cried and why I will die. And also, can that dog act?
Oh my god. Okay, I guess this is the first time I've cried from laughter.
Yay!
Oh my god.
Thank you so much for listening to that.
Who knew that the lyrics went so well with that song?
It was just asking for some lyrics.
It really was.
What an episode, huh? We really went some places. Thank you so much for listening. As always, you can find us on social, Facebook and Instagram, Vicious Cycle Podcast. And you're going to want to tune in next week because by popular demand, we are doing a 2-part series on menstrual cups.
Yeah.
So we're going to hear from listeners, and we're going to chime in with our own thoughts and research. But until then, keep calm.
And tampon.
It may be primal, it may be vital, but it makes you homicidal. It's a vicious, it's a vicious, it's a vicious cycle.
Our theme song was performed by The Go Ahead. Check out more at thegoaheadmusic.com.